Aum Sairam. Hara Hara Shankara, Jaya Jaya Shankara. Episode 31. Shri Mahaswami, the sage with eyes of light, the diary of a seeker of truth, Dr.Serge Demetrian. Dear devotees, now we shall listen to the second section of part 2 of this divine book under the subtitle The Lotus Pond. The Kusha Grass Mat. Shri Mahaswami meditates or performs his services twice a day on the last step of the reservoir, near the water, while sitting on a small square mat, some 40 centimeters on all sides. It is woven out of kusha grass and is brought from the hut and then taken back by one of his assistants. It has become old and the woven threads that keep the grass together are worn out. As Shri Mahaswami replaces things as they run down or are overused, this kusha grass mat will have to be changed soon, for it got threadbare. I was waiting for such a moment, as I intended to recover the old mat, which is usually thrown by the assistants either onto the roof of the hut, where the old clothes of Shri Mahaswami end up as well, or may be left in some corner of the hermitage, if not simply thrown away in the forest. I liked the idea of possessing an object directly touched by him, especially during such particular periods as they last profound days. I would have considered this as a favor bestowed by him on me. The good day came for the replacement mat, and the old disappeared without my being able to locate it. It was neither on the roof nor in the neighboring wood. In order not to arouse any suspicion, I had the thought to come at night to minutely inspect the close neighborhood, the interior yard, and the shed. That same evening I lay down on the stairs, as I did so often, but this time carefully avoided going to sleep too quickly. I got up towards midnight, and being helped by a half moon that intermittently appeared from behind sparse clouds, I started to carefully explore the immediate surroundings of the hermitage. A first attentive and slow round did not reveal anything, neither a second one. The doors stood closed, and everybody seemed to be asleep inside. I stood up as high as I could and looked behind the fence into the courtyard. I searched even in the red box on the tricycle. I ferreted without success in the shed. I thought the mat must be concealed in some corner of the hut itself. I will have to be attentive the next days and come back, as the mat has to come out in some way or other. Still, I took the chance of one last round, which I started in front of the door of Shri Mahaswami's room, and which I should have ended up at after a complete circuit. If nothing happened, I would go to sleep on my habitual step at the pond. After 5 minutes, I was about to finish my round when I suddenly stopped a few meters before the starting point, that is, the door of Shri Mahaswami's room. An object was there, which had not been there 5 minutes ago. I suspiciously went round the thing from a distance. It was oblong, but not an animal, as it was not moving and seemed quite real. I summoned up my courage, and in the favorable partial light of the moon, I came nearer and examined it. It was the old mat of Shri Mahaswami. It was carefully rolled up, leaning against the side of his room, just near the opening of the door. It could not have been kept there but by him or at his direct order, and this for me. He had felt that I wanted it, and he was replying to my wish. I did not touch it straight away, lest it should disappear. I forced myself to perform another round, thinking, if Sri Mahaswami has brought out the mat for me, he will safeguard it for me. While coming back, I saw the roll waiting calmly in the same place. I thanked Swamiji by prostrating in front of his room. Then I respectfully touched the mat with the right hand, took it and brought it to the eyes and then on the top of the head. I covered it with my shawl and kept it close to my heart. As a sign of thankfulness, I walked 3 times round the hermitage. That night, I did not remain on the stairs, but picked up the bedding and went to my room at the mill. Since then, this mat has been one of the most beloved objects by which I have been blessed by him during his lifetime. It soon had its place and proved useful. I kept it wrapped in the valkalam. This way, the dress of the ascetics protects it and in its turn is better protected by being rolled round in a bundle. Both objects are the tokens of the same status, that of the hermit sage. Karveti Nagar, September 1971. The meditation lesson. Sri Mahaswami often gives darshan from the second room of the hut near his bedroom, where the upper half of the hut's side has been cut and replaced by a folding mat. A group of youngsters, round 20 years, Western fashion educated, dressed in town clothes, have come to see Sri Mahaswami, perhaps pushed by their parents. They look at him with curiosity. Sri Mahaswami addresses in English one of them. "Do you meditate morning and evening?" "No," was the reply. "I do not know how." Without seeming surprised, on the contrary, all smiling, Sri Mahaswami took the trouble to explain it to him. Was it also for me as I stood nearby? I could not say, but here are his words as I remembered them exactly. You start with pranayama in order to calm down your mind, and Sri Mahaswami brings the thumb and the ring finger of the right hand at his nose and performs a double movement of respiration. Then you close the eyes, you look into your heart, and you concentrate on a light like the flame of a candle the size of your thumb. You focus your mind on this image, excluding any other. He showed his right thumb, placed it for 1 instant in the middle of his chest, closed his eyes and stayed immobile 1 or 2 minutes. All the onlookers kept silent, stopped fidgeting and stared at him. He was the perfect example of immobility. He did not even breathe. A deep peace radiated from him. He seemed to be without limits, translucent. Sri Mahaswami heaved then a sigh. The eyelids slightly moved and the eyes could be seen, but the force of the sight is late to arrive. As it seemed to come back from far, from very far, he turned towards the person he was talking to. Do meditate this way at least 5 minutes in the morning and in the evening. By a discreet sign of the hand, he showed to the group that the darshan had come to its end. Who knows how those youngsters evolved after being taught by a great sage how to meditate. Karveti Nagar, Friday, 17th September 1971. Darshan from the room. This morning, Sri Mahaswami sat on his bed, exactly in the same manner I had left him yesterday, as if waiting for me. He bade leave to his younger brother, a short, sympathetic and energetic aged person who looks almost exactly like him and who had come to pay a visit to the hermitage. Before I could greet him through the open door, Swamiji offered to me a splendid darshan. His eyes were wide open, immense. The eyeballs were totally made of bluish light, so much so that I could not perceive the white part. He was intensely gazing at me, and from time to time I was allowed to take some rest. Then he restarted looking at me. During a moment of respite, I prostrated in front of him and remained kneeling, as I considered it was easier for him to lower the look towards me than to gaze up. I am by almost 1.5 heads taller than him. Sri Mahaswami observed this and immediately kept 2 fingers over the left eye, looking at me through a narrow slit. It is the way he blessed and breathed life into the stone images of the gods. He moved his gaze over me several times like the beam of a small torch lamp, an invisible stroke of lightning, though still palpable. It was a round patch of brilliance with the expanse of a larger coin, and everywhere this bundle of rays passed, it burned everything like leaving furrows of transparent amethyst in a plowed field. I kept one hand as a canopy over my eyebrows in order to protect me from the sun, and I closed the eyes 2 or 3 times trying to meditate on the little Spatikalinga in my heart. Soon afterward, Swamiji came down from his bed, took his danda with both hands and blessed me by leaning it slightly towards me. Then he bestowed on me the parting blessing with hands in Anjali. The force he had developed was such that his body was dense steel under an appearance of frailty, which vibrated like the string of a bent bow. The discreet flame, that hardened light in which Sri Mahaswami is cast, flashed almost visibly, and for the fraction of a second I saw him become taller up to the roof of the hut. Have I been mistaken? It is possible. He quickly reassumed his usual aspect before I could verify this unexplainable happening. This is not a new experience, as he had permitted me to see him like this on other instances. He left then with slow and hesitant strides towards the bottom of his room and passed behind a screen where he often retired to. This time the darshan took place without the preliminary preparations of 1 up to 3 hours in his presence. Perhaps this was the reason I was tired instead of feeling at ease. I went on the other side of the reservoir in order to look towards the west, thus facing the hermitage. I had a slight headache and the mind was agitated. After some gymnastic exercises and walking, I was able to meditate a few minutes, so that the power I had received got stored in the drawers, so to speak, of the nervous system. This force must heal the body and the thought of the illusion of the transitory world. The philosophers call it Maya, the universal illusion, whose mission is to conceal from men their own true nature and the true nature of the universe, that is, to conceal God from men. Hence, Ishvara, God the Master, the Creator, is called also Mayavin. The one who acts through Maya, the great illusionist. In these last days, I noticed that some personal improvement has appeared because of a certain ease in isolating the Purusha, the sign of the eternal in our heart, from the rest of the bodily structure. This happens very quickly if Swamiji cuts the intricate spider's web between the Purusha and the mortal 5 sheets the body is composed of. How easy could be the final liberation if Sri Mahaswami effaced this multiple husk, for instance, by burning it with the power he is endowed with, or if he totally took over the 5 strata of the bodily casing, or if he acted upon this talking shell or writing shell in this instance, which would now move as in a dream with a clear consciousness that it is he, not me, that moves about. Nevertheless, attention, it is not advisable to express wishes and imagine plans. Karvetinagar, Sunday 19th September 1971. Gliding as a gigantic iceberg of condensed light. Yesterday afternoon, around 6 p.m., when usually I arrived at the hermitage, Sri Mahaswami came out as soon as I finished my first pradakshina. He went under some pretext to the southern extremity of the hermitage in order to shake off the insistent visitors. Then he came slowly down the flight of stairs towards the water. I waited 5 steps lower and stood right in his path. With great energy, he tore down towards me like a gigantic iceberg of condensed light gliding on a sea. However, I did not move. I waited, repeating in thought the divine names, hands in Anjali. I could not see his eyes, as I was more preoccupied in the effort to receive him in the center of my open heart. I succeeded by widening it to its utmost limits, so that he might enter in it. The wave of bliss he radiated grew as he approached. It was a surging wave that blocked my lungs and compelled me to open my mouth. In the effort to hold his presence, my eyes were wide open, trying to absorb as much as possible of that silent light which surrounded him. I must have had a frightening sight for non-informed onlookers. He came so near that I could have touched him with my outstretched arms. Then he suddenly changed his route, leaving me transfixed on the step. He headed towards the place where he does his morning and evening ablutions and where he performs the puja, the last step of the lotus pond in view of the hut. Once, awoken from my surprise, I came down to the water edge. As usual, I was at his right, but this time slightly to his back, on the next immediate step up. In order to include me in his regular cycle of invocation towards the 4 directions of space, he was compelled to bring his hands over his right shoulder, very far back. He accomplished this gesture several times and exclusively to his right. Where I stood, during these minutes, I felt he had extracted everything out of me, leaving nothing but a feeble skeleton, as if he was liquefying and purifying me. There followed an interval of immobile meditation. Sri Mahaswami had permitted me to meditate so intensely on him that, in an unexplainable manner, I saw myself very near to him, which, by the way, happens to me quite often. I felt the human heat of his body, and for a few seconds I became totally himself. After this, Sri Mahaswami undertook the blessing of the waters. He leaned towards the lake, drew the sign Omkara with the right ring finger, then kept his hand in the water near the surface with open palm. This was for 2 or 3 minutes, with his face revealing an expression of profound concentration. Since I knew his habits, I came down and was already standing in the water up to the knees. I clearly perceived how a vibration touched me, and I remembered the physics classes while at school concerning the electrical conductivity of water. I took in the hollow of my hand a little of the liquid and sprinkled some drops on my head. The water seemed heavy to me, almost like a piece of jelly. This morning, while going to the hermitage, I allowed myself to be drawn in some empty talk by 2 or 3 acquaintances from Karvetinagar. I had to pay for the delay. When I reached the hermitage, Sri Mahaswami had just finished his bath and his ablutions with some tirtha from Haridwar. I still went down to the pond in order to touch the waters sanctified by him. A lesson to be drawn. When one heads towards the hermitage, one should not dally on the way. It is also the traditional advice. The one who goes to the temple should not stop on his way, nor should someone else stop him. Shri Mahaswami quickly entered the hut without leaving me time to greet him. What had I to do? I went on the opposite side of the pond, and come what may, I sat at the foot of a tree and started japa. Then I recited in a loud voice the Guru Vastaka. Almost against my will, I went on meditating. For 90 minutes, several images came. Some were probably the result of my imagination, and others the outcome of a mental effort. But there were still 2 images that I could neither imagine nor call. Through the blessing of Sri Mahaswami, I sensed firstly 2 or 3 entire purifications of the body and the mind. It was some sort of interior cleansing. Slowly but very clearly, there was again established that new interior opening to which Sri Mahaswami had led me the other day. On the 14th September, while meditating on the top of Skanda hill, I became purely and simply he and nothing other. No sign was left of me as to remember what I was before. Everything had perished. It remained only a luminous cloud in a hole of time and space, with, however, a discrete idea of I vaguely sketched somewhere. Before the end of this state, or perhaps after it, I left this body in meditation as if it were a log of wood at the feet of a tree, not a piece of wood. Once I had come out, I was annoyed. What shall I do now? What if I go to Sri Mahaswami? Then suddenly it seemed as if I had jumped to the other side of the pond at some 40 meters distance, where in the darkness of the hut I knew it. Sri Mahaswami was intensely thinking on me. I found him on his bed, and I blindly searched for his feet. As to myself, I had become almost invisible, some sort of flimsy powder, in order to reach the mollifying surface of those white and rosy feet. Will I say that he had received this powder and that he had smeared it on his feet in the manner with which he rubs the ashes on his body after a bath? Did I feel this, or had I wanted it? What is absolutely sure is that I had come out of the body as a vapor, that I was not at all troubled by this new situation, and that I crossed the lake where I searched for his feet, which he then revealed to me. If I had really been or not changed into powder as to be smeared on his feet, this I ignore. Would it be physically possible? By a decision independent of my will, I had to return and resume possession of this log of a body. In the meantime, some visitors had come near. At the peak of the meditation, nobody had troubled me. In addition, I had the benefit of a calm freshness with a festive air round me, as if nature was surrounding me, smiling, maternal, and protective. Devotees, we shall continue to listen to the lotus pond in the coming episode, bowing at the holy feet of the Gurus. Aum Sairam. Hara Hara Shankara, Jaya Jaya Shankara.